Welcome to Marketing MASH, brought to you by themarketingscope.com.
Hi, I'm Eric Vidal. Welcome to the Marketing MASH. Today I have Tim Ash, the CEO of Site Tuners and the founder of Conversion, the conference that's been around for 7 years.
Yeah,
correct?
Since 2010, Conversion Conference. That's
Great, right. Great. So, first of all, you're a speaker and an author as well, and you actually literally wrote the book on landing page optimization. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, it's been through 2 editions now, 50,000 copies sold, 6 languages, so it seems to be helpful for people.
When was that first version of the book written?
2008. And things have changed a bit since then.
They have changed. So what are some points that people ask you about and say, hey, these are some points that I learned in your book that just helped me out immensely? What are 2 or 3 of those things?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing is just the mindset, because most companies, when they do online marketing, start out with an outside-in focus, or inside-out focus rather. There's, how do we broadcast our crap to the audience? That's their thinking. And we say it's all about the visitors. It's all about their psychology. It's all about their needs. And maybe you can fill those needs, maybe not. But without aligning with their needs, you're not going anywhere. So it's really about getting your head on straight and thinking about it from their viewpoint.
Yeah. Also, is it about looking at it and keeping an eye on those landing pages and seeing what's working and trying a lot of A/B testing and tweaking?
Certainly, that's one technique, but I kind of don't like it when you collapse conversion rate optimization into split testing. They're not the same. Split testing is just essentially settling the bar bet, making sure you don't make things worse. It's just validating that your ideas work, but where your ideas come from or the techniques for changing your web experience, there are a million ways to do it, and it's not just little tactical, what I call green button, orange button testing, which one works better. Yeah. That'll get you part of the way there, but that's not where the big gains are to be had.
Well, let's talk about your keynote at the conference. And what was the title again?
It was Ending the War Between Branding and Direct Response.
So the war between branding and direct response. So I need to hear more about this, because I've worked at a couple companies where there was definitely a war. And what do the branding folks think about the direct response folks, and what do the direct response folks think about the branding?
Well, I was pretty biased, because I started on the conversion rate optimization, the direct response side, and we think of branding people as arrogant, just opinion based, unaccountable, because
maybe
we're spending money
fluffy
on branding, but where's the ROI on that, right? We also think of them as kind of like control freaks that are into compliance and killing good ideas just because they're technically not exactly the right font or something like that. Happens all the time. And so at the end of the day, the biggest argument ender in making more money is that's off brand. So when you get into brand heavy companies, that's a huge problem. But to be fair, on the other side, they think of us as hucksters, not seeing the bigger picture, being completely inconsistent with their campaigns. They see us as being kind of unethical some of the time and pushing gray areas just to make a buck. So those mentalities don't really work well together at first blush.
So in your keynote, you address this. I know it's 45 minutes plus, but we don't have that much time. But what are a couple takeaways that our audience could learn and maybe try to integrate into their team? Are there a couple things that maybe?
Well, maybe I can paint a quick picture. So the first thing to realize is a brand isn't your typography or your logo or any of that trade dress stuff, right? What it is the ideas evoked in the minds of your visitors. So like Marlboro, I'll use bad cigarette brand for an example because it's so powerful. Whether it's tall black letters or the color red or the lone cowboy on the range, all of those activate the Marlboro brand. But so the trigger doesn't matter that you're using. What matters is that notion of rugged individualism and masculinity that it's unlocking. So if it maps to the right concept in your brain, if it activates the brand properly, then the trigger is pretty freeform, and that's where the brand compliance guys get it wrong. Lots of triggers work as long as they trigger the right concept in your mind.
Yeah, it's a good way of good mindset.
So if you really understand your brand frame and kind of the implicit subconscious goals that it's addressing, like adventure or autonomy or a sense of security, whatever your brand actually stands for, and you get your messaging to map to that and they're in alignment, that's where you get the best results. But if brand thinks that it stands for something that it doesn't and direct response is just throwing crap at the wall, that's when the problems start.
So Tim, if you want the two sides to work together, better? What's a good roadmap for that kind of success?
Well, I'd say you can use this as kind of a checklist. The first is be realistic about what your brand stands for. And it's not your positioning or your unique selling proposition or crap you want to broadcast out to the world. It's a sober assessment of what it means. Everyone hates Comcast, for example, right? Everyone thinks Volvo is like your uncle's car, right? It's like, so you can't say, if you say high performance Volvo sports coupe, it just, that's not realistic, right? So understand what your brand stands for. Understand the psychological and kind of unconscious motivations that your audience is trying to solve by using your product or service. In other words, not serving them or any objective stuff that they're going to put into words, but understand their kind of like mammalian basic needs. And then you make sure whatever messaging you come up with matches to that. And then you do the testing, you make sure that it actually worked.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have a super strong brand, you actually use that to define your brand. You're feeding the direct response back into brand by saying, oh, people respond to this fear-based approach or this loss avoidance approach, and maybe we should make that part of our brand language.
Yeah. So is it having a more flexible brand architecture where the vision, the mission, the brand promise, the personality could evolve, could change a little bit? It gives a little more flexibility.
Right. So
more flexibility.
Think about it is your online marketers are kind of your field soldiers, and they get to experiment. And that should have a formal back to the brand. It shouldn't be brand telling people what to do.
That's a good analogy. Good analogy. Field soldiers out there finding out what's going on in the front lines and bringing it back to headquarters.
And making it actually a stronger, tighter, more resonant brand.
I like that. So the conference, 7 years. What can we expect over the next year, and what's coming? What's coming out next?
Huge focus on mobile, obviously. We're seeing a lot of interest in video as well. Those two kind of go hand in hand because there's a generational shift as well, with millennials are very likely to consume video on mobile. It's kind of the standard. You expect it. So video advertising, video calls to action, mobile-first websites, mobile-optimized emails. If you haven't considered what this looks like through a smartphone screen, you lose.
Yeah, great. Tim Ash, thank you very much.
My pleasure, Eric.
Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Marketing MASH. You can share your thoughts by following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast to keep up with the show. And of course, you can always find us by visiting themarketingscope.com.